I'm always quite surprised by how matter of fact Danny, I think, talks about these things in the documentary. Like he talks about, we can go on to talk about it later as well, but he talks about when George was attacked by the intruder in his house.
Yeah.
And he talks about how, that attack, like he was battling cancer and then had to overcome the physical assault of someone, and that definitely took years off his life.
Yeah.
But he's quite candid talking about that, and I wonder if it's quite shocking in a way, I think, sometimes, because it's like, oh, this must contribute to some kind of personal grief that you must be feeling. But I also wonder if over time he has sort of a greater acceptance of his dad's death in the same way that George seemed to have of his own death before it happened.
Yeah, I think that family is very comforted by the way that sort of George left this life. I don't think that any of them needs convincing particularly of like George's commitment to sort of achieving enlightenment and to the idea that he actually did when he left this earth, So I mean, it's worth saying that this is this documentary is where Olivia says quite explicitly, it's a little coy, I suppose, but she says, at the moment of his death, you wouldn't have needed to light the room, put it that way. If you were going to film it, you wouldn't have needed to light the room.
There was a profound experience that happened when he left his body. It was visible. Let's just say you wouldn't need to light the room if you were trying to film it. He just lit the room.
She's essentially saying that she witnessed a moment, a state of grace, a moment of divine bliss, which is lovely, by the way, and I think it's lovely that this film gives her the space to say something like that.
Yes. And
she will, she's an executive producer on this film, so obviously, she's probably going to say what she wants broadly, but that this is a space in which she feels comfortable saying something like that. This is one of the interesting things about being a Beatles fan, and a George fan in particular, is that I don't consider myself religious or spiritual. And when I was younger, I was a bit more, sort of into the sort of intellectual idea of atheism, before I started finding it quite boring and realizing that most of its public, most of the sort of public apologists for atheism were actually just quite dull and quite humorless. And so I stopped banging on about it quite so much. But it never really applied to the way I think about George. I'm perfectly happy to accept the idea that George achieved spiritual enlightenment, that he went on to a better place, because it's nice,
Yeah.
I like, it fits my interpretation of who he was. I don't feel the need to interrogate it. I don't feel the need, I don't think an interviewer needs to say to Olivia, well, hold on, what are you saying?
Yes, exactly.
But,
yeah. What exactly did you see?
Yeah, and so I don't think to myself, this family would, because one explanation, if you wanted a rational explanation for that, you might say, okay, well, this family was in a lot of grief, and these things can make the mind play tricks on you. Maybe your mind saw what you wanted to see, that kind of thing, and maybe that's true, but I don't. The film doesn't feel the need to interrogate it, and shouldn't, and I don't feel the need to interrogate it either.